See your screen at least.
Screen, okay. Was it slow? Let me try one more time. Okay, should work now. Is it visible?
Not yet.
No, sir.
Not yet.
Now it's coming. It's
Now it's
coming.
coming.
Yes, sir. Now it is
Okay.
visible.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, well, thanks so much, Mosmi, for introduction. Two things to highlight. I'm based in Netherlands, not Netherlands. The country we will be very offended if you call us Netherlands. It's Netherlands. And second, I'm asked many times, what do I do as part of solution consulting? What is solution consulting? What is pre-sales? There is sales and solution selling. So the part of my role is, of course, we all in IT companies or different other companies, we make products, certain products or services. And that product has to take a journey to solve a customer problem. And that's the journey I take with my customer and make that product a solution. That's why it is called solution consulting. Now, moving forward, as this presentation title says, and thanks for invite here, and very happy to present another time and talk to you guys. So this ESG outlook is my personal outlook on data privacy and security. Now, this is very common thing that people interchangeably use data privacy and security. They are very closely related to each other, but they have a very distinguished difference. Data privacy is your legal framework driven by the governance and regulatory enforcement. And security are the measures you take in terms of the tools, technology, and practices to secure, safeguard that particular data. That could be PII, which is personal identifier information for people, or SPI, sensitive personal information. Data could be anything. Now, moving forward, okay. 28 January, not too long ago, we had Data Privacy Day. I hope and I believe many of you already know there is International Data Privacy Day called 28th January, but how did it come in effect? Any idea? The first Data Privacy Day was celebrated on 2006 because of European Council remarked on celebrating the signatory of certain treaty, ITS or ETS, signed in 1981, 44 years back. And that treaty was ETS 108, signed on 28th January 1981. And the convention was Convention for the Protection of Individuals with regard to automated processing of personal data. This was to maintain the data security, privacy, and access to right data as a human right for everyone. And this treaty was signed by European Commission, by state of all the Europe on 1981. And that's why in 2006, they came up with celebrating International Data Privacy Day across the world. Now, let's get some basics right. Data is everywhere, and data is just raw, and data may not yield any much collateral value if it cannot be put in together into a contextual and meaningful pattern called information. And based on that information, you gain certain actionable insights and actions which you can take on, and that's the knowledge. Now, if we expand and explore it further, this is the DIKW pyramid, where data is just available. It is standalone data, and then you put it into a context in an information which can be used by answering certain questions, what, who, where, and then based on that, you get some analysis and patterns which you can enforce your knowledge on it, and then you have ready-made wisdom. Now, challenge yourself. We hear a lot more AI and ML, and both of those terms are data-driven. Where would AI go here, and where would be ML? And the basic difference of AI and ML. ML, machine learning, is actually an outcome of your data strategy. How you transform your data, how you capture it, how you ingest it, how you make your machines learn about that data in terms of the behavior pattern. That's its own knowledge. And wisdom is the output of that proper data strategy and machine learning in place so that wisdom can act upon earned artificial intelligence. A very important example in your day-to-day life is fitness tracker. Many of us may be using fitness tracker on your phones or have Fitbit or some other form of smartwatches. And what does it do? It has your biometric data of your metabolism, your weight, height, age, etc. And then that data is also, what did you do? How many steps did you take? How many calories did you burn? What was your heart rate? And when you put it together, you earn your information, which you can show in terms of graph or bar, and can set up a pattern that what you're doing, how your body is reacting on that. And that is the knowledge. What is the impact of that information on your body? And based on that, there is wisdom which tells you what you need to adjust in your workout routine. You're working so fast, you are having intense workout, your heart rate is going really at very high. This is not what you should be doing. This is what the wisdom is, where it tells you you need to slow down. Sometimes if you put on your smartphones and you have your headphones really at very high, after a week, it will tell you that you are crossing 75 decibels of permissible or acceptable limit for human ears. This is the particular usage of data and how the wisdom is achieved from that. Questions? You have heard this song. There is a particular purpose why this is here, because we're talking about ESG today, the data and the ESG. And this is very interesting because Michelle, who is my colleague and my senior, my close friend, and we discovered something very interesting when we think of Despacito. So first question, and this is what we learned about it last week only when we were working on this presentation together. So first question, how many of you have heard this song? Safe to assume everyone. And how many of you have streamed this song online? Safe to assume everyone again. Now, let's go here. This song, the journey of this song was released in 2017. It became the first song to achieve 3 billion views within 8 months. And then within a year time, or little more than a year, it was already 5 billion views. And that time it was the big achievement. Now, let's put this data, what we just see on the screen here, in a context that in 2020, when this song was on 7 billion views, milestone, another first song to achieve 7 billion. The combined population of 5 African countries, Chad, Somalia, Sierra Leone, Central African Republic, and Guinea-Bissau, it was 48 million. That's 48 million. Now 7 billion views and 48 million. How does it relate to each other? This is another graph of the population of each of the country as it was. So Chad had the most and Guinea-Bissau had the least. The online streaming of this song actually consumed more energy than 48 million people combined in 1 year in 2020. Interesting fact. Now, this tells, as a human behavior, what our behavior impacts on ESG, which is environmental sustainability and governance side. So it's not just the corporations who have to do. I can bring another story here, which is very interesting. I'm not sure, well, I'm sure a lot of you have taken or consumed coffee once in your life. There is a very famous North American beverage company who produces their own coffee cups or pods, and they also produce their own coffee machines, home coffee machines. And they claim their pods are easily recyclable and environmental friendly and everything. The company name is Keurig. KEURIG, quite big, sizable. Last year, from SEC, which is equivalent of SEBI in India, SEC, Securities and Economic Commission, fined Keurig for $1.5 million US because they made false claims on, or they made overstating claims on their environmental achievements based on their Keurig pots. They said it was easily compostable, recyclable, and also can be environmental friendly. Neither the size of that pod was environmental friendly, nor the composite material used in that. So as much as ESG focuses on companies, ESG also is a focus from consumers or stakeholders, as we are part of that same planet. This is an interesting perspective of what is an ESG data lifecycle. How do you collect it? What do you do about it? What are the insights you take it? So here, it's a cyclic process. ESG is a journey, is a cyclic process. It's not an outcome. And ESG cannot stand and cannot achieve its goals. SDG, Sustainability Development Goals, cannot achieve its own purpose if data strategy and data lifecycle is not properly defined. So the first part of ESG data is the data capturing, data handling, and storage of it. And that's where the data could come from internal or external systems, like quantitative data in terms of your emissions or organization's emissions, CO2 emissions, or etc., as well as compensation for the senior executives. And then qualitative data in terms of HR records or DEI, privacy statements. So data could be anything. That's the raw data, which can come from different sources, external, internal, and then also previous reports and all. And then you ingest that data and make it in a representable format. You, of course, do a proper storage of that data, and then you use it for further processing of controls and compute. And that's where it becomes very interesting, because quality controls are in place. And that's the area which I take care in my current job, is how quality control and document control or data control is happening, and what is happening with that data in terms of compliance readiness, audit readiness, and data source identification. So all these controls have been input. At the same time, you also have your computational and derivative information in terms of how you compute the CO2 equivalent of greenhouse gases and the emissions. And then that data is also coming manually automated from sensors and anything. And those all systems are in place. And after that goes on quality assurance and compliance, where you are adhering to certain standards in terms of data standards or compliance to your GXP or GCP or GMP standards. GXP is good manufacturing practices, good clinical practices, lab practices in different industries. So how you are assuring all that information which is coming, and you have all that data properly maintained and in a transparent and authenticated manner. Based on when you have this assurances available, you also have reporting. Now the reporting could go in public filing to the authorities, to regulatory bodies, as well as your internal disclosures for your shareholder statements or your sustainability action statements, and how you store it, where you provide it, and how you ingest it from previous steps. As well as, of course, when your reporting is good, you earn your rating from external third-party agencies called Morningstar or Bloomberg. And based on your ESG rating, of course, you look forward to revenue generation, investing in financing, because this is a really big thing. 67% of the bigger corporation out of Forbes 2000 companies say they have seen revenue increase based on their better ESG strategy and ratings. Now, take a step back, offsetting and trading. Offsetting and trading is another important thing because of the carbon credits, because this is where you either earn it or you lose it. And carbon credit is going to be a massive industry by 2030, saying 100 $30 billion, $50 billion market for carbon credits also. Why? Because in case you consumed more or you produced more carbon emissions than expected, of course, you need to be aware of it and you need to offset your ESG targets, as well as if you absorb more carbon and your practices were all right. So that's where you could do trading also on carbon credits. And then based on those data reporting and rating, you have insights and risk analysis where you could take your well-informed decisions for your future initiatives. And of course, product optimization, customer service optimization, stakeholder engagement across the board, bringing transparency, accountability, and responsibility. And then again, going back to data source identification, you start doing the cycle again and again. And this is a continuous improvement and continuous process for data management in ESG. Questions? And please stop me if I'm too fast. Okay, now ESG. I know last year we talked about in one of key topics where Michelle and I had a session last year, and ESG was discussed in a wider detail. Tomorrow there will be a big session again on data management, data center side. So we are not going to go into what is ESG, but I'm going to say what is the environmental impact of E in ESG. Well, as we all know, data privacy, and even it was very difficult for me to find a link between why data privacy and security matter in ESG, because that should remain absolutely transparent. People are accountable, they are responsible, they need to report everything. So why? But then there are so many different areas where environmental aspect is in data is extremely important, and the data privacy and security is important. So the first thing which I was seeing into E was e-waste generation and energy consumption. Now, this is, of course, something that energy doesn't produce, and energy doesn't gets destroyed. It just transforms from one side to another. And it is also how we export from one side of the problem to another. I will give you an example. Right now, I have 3 devices in my hand. I hope you could see. These are 3 PKI infrastructure, public key infrastructure. They all are for data privacy and security. 2 of them are given by my banks, and then 1 device is given by secure access to certain systems in one of my previous employments. None of these are required now, but these devices were created using a lot of material, raw material, plastic waste. This is the e-waste. Now, this thing is just PKI because as part of the data privacy and security, it's a 2-pronged approach. Something you know and something you have. Something you know is the password I know, and something I have, this device which authenticates and authorizes for me to access. Now, these devices are age-old hardware, which is just waste. And where it has gone now, because now on my mobile, I have an app. Exactly same thing. You may have an app called Authenticator from Google or Microsoft or HID token to do the exactly same thing. But then we're not making any e-waste. We are not making any plastic waste, but we are actually moving it towards the digital world where energy is getting consumed. So that's where these security systems do not have to create an overhead from one side to the other because of that massive needs of computational power, and which would need a lot of energy to run those systems. So cybersecurity is an important aspect as much as it protects the data, but it also is responsible for not increasing the energy overload on environmental aspect of ESG. Okay. Now, social impact, because this is where it all impacts us directly or indirectly. Reason is socially, people have, I have a slide further, but a recent survey from PwC was released, and it says nearly 67% or 80% of the people said they do not want to do business with a bank who does not have their cybersecurity and data policy properly communicated, and they cannot protect our data. And that's where it goes on customer trust. If customer loses your trust in your product and services and how you are handling their data, be PII or SPI or transactional or anything, that would be a massive social impact, because every business which is being done locally or internationally or cross-border has a social impact. It impacts the society, it impacts the communities that business or the product or the services are being tendered to or catered to. So to ensure the trust, the data protection and social impact is extremely important, and transparent data practices are required, because then you actually gain the stakeholder engagement, where the stakeholders are not only internal customers of your employees or shareholder or your financiers or sponsors, but also the end users and the customers. And that's why cybersecurity and workforce protection, because continuous training is required against the ever-evolving landscape of cyber threats. And there is something called identity theft. A few years back, when I was working in a cybersecurity company, we asked a question to some of our users that if I steal your password, you change your password. But if I steal your biometric, your fingerprint, how would you change it? And that's where ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity threats is very important, and we always need to remain one step ahead of time. It is essential because nobody wants to have any disrupt in essential services. There was a question asked to one of the biggest chip manufacturers in US, I'm not going to take name, and we asked 1 hour of your downtime because of a security threat, even if it is just captured, not a real threat, it has been mitigated. But 1 hour of downtime in your production systems, what would be your loss? They said per hour globally, we lose 700 million US dollars. So you imagine, and I took the name of semiconductor or chip manufacturer. Those chips are used in mobile phones, healthcare devices, automotive, all that connected transport, everywhere. Now you can imagine what would be the massive scale of any threat in cyberspace. Then, of course, this is very important because ethical AI and bias prevention, because these large language models, which are being used and trained to develop next generation of or generative AI, because it started with predictive AI, now it is on generative AI. You could go to ChatGPT and you could type things and get whole text out of it and stuff from there. But those AI models need to be neutral, because AI is not just a tool for automation. AI has a deeper impact as a socio-technical thing. We are interacting with those AI models based on the cultural, community, and ethical data as it is required. So these are, let's say, essential responsibility for the developers to develop those large language models, train them in a way that there is no bias or prejudices against any gender, region, religion, and ethnicity of or community of the people. It should be completely neutral. And then bridging the digital divide. There is a very good initiative. I had talked about this thing 1 or 2 years back, digital divide, where the government of India is just saying digital revolution, banking the unbanked population, and how UPI has created and brought everyone in digital landscape. But it is for the end user that you have this digital device and you could do your transaction in a very secure and inclusive way, but as well as ease of comfort of doing things. But beyond that, in e-commerce, there is ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce, which has been also initiated by Government of India in 2021. And there is a massive push for small and micro industries and traders to bring into a network, digital network of, let's say, e-commerce within India, and at the same time, at a very secure and protected way, so that there is no harm to the community, to the society, and to the business and their revenues. Governance. When we hear governance, we of course have a little bit of nervousness, because governance is related to authorities, regulatory bodies, people with power who can hammer down anything they need to do in terms of protecting and safeguarding the interest of the people they're serving. So the governance is important aspect of ESG, but governance, risk, and compliance is a wider aspect when we talk about data privacy and security across all the industries, leadership, and as well as the behavior from the stakeholders, be it corporate or the user. That's why we have this multiple compliance and risk management programs. Regulatory compliances are coming. One of them was, of course, leading GDPR, where I can tell one thing: as part of GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, you're not allowed to take a photo of somebody and publish it online without their consent. Even if I'm giving a presentation on Microsoft Teams or even Google Meet, till I'm asked explicitly, can my comment, my recording be made? And if I consent to it, nobody can do that because it's against the regulation. Same thing with Consumer Protection Act in California or DPDP. How many of you have heard DPDP, which is signed only last year? This is Digital Personal Data Protection Act, signed on 11th of August 2023, exactly providing people to be able to take control of their own data, what they share, and they can also hold responsible in terms of the corporates and their governance model, that that data is accessible to them in terms of deletion, rectification, or accessibility. And any avoidance of or non-compliance actions can also lead to legal penalties, bad press, and reputational damage, as I said. Now, in terms of, I'm not going to read all that. There is a lot of text on this. I would like to move forward because I am already 35 minutes. So, of course, investors for corporate transparency, investors for revenue generations are important. Governments are also enforcing strict rules for data sovereignty and ethical handling of the data, from collection to storage to ethical disposal, as well as board level guidelines and policies are required for cybersecurity across all the corporate governance frameworks. Now, why this ESG data security and privacy matters? We talked a lot in all those three elements, but here, why? Because we know what is privacy, which is a legal framework, and security are the measures of tools and techniques and solutions and technology used to safeguard that data. Well, as we talked about it, compliance are required because you have to adhere to GDPR and CCPA or DPDP Act in terms of what data you are taking, from whom you are taking, where you are storing, how long are you storing, how are you going to dispose it of. And this compliance check are enforced on an annual basis to each of the corporates. We call it compliance questionnaire, audits, different ways, different jurisdiction are acting based on their own legislations. And that's why ESG data and ESG security becomes very important, because ESG data travels cross-border. And with cross-border data transmission or traversing of the data becomes very complex, how and what legislation and jurisdiction you apply in terms of it. If I give an example that Germany still does not allow to store their data outside EU, irrespective of wherever it is, not outside EU and not in USA. So any customer, any company I go and work with in Germany, and we talk about the cloud infrastructure, because, hey, we are moving from old hardware, old technologies, we are going to cloud, environment friendly, all secure, low capital expenditure. But then the first question we are asked is, as per the compliance processes, where is your data center? We're not going to take, if you're taking Amazon Web Services, we're not going to have data center in Seattle. We want it either in Frankfurt or in Dublin. That's the compliance framework, which we all have to adhere to. Same thing, how you actually safeguard sensitive information, what mechanics you use in terms of encryption, in terms of accessibility, and also the mechanism of accountability and responsibility and transparency, how you are actually managing my data. And you are protecting it, because I should be able to access my data if I want to, but at the same time, that data should not be authorized to be accessed through a cyber breach or by unauthorized parties who are not authorized to access. One of that example is PSD2 here, Payment Services Directive in Europe, and PSD2 is also adhering to ESG very closely. But what it has done, that not only you don't need only banking services to make a payment, you could actually make payment through third-party providers, either payment initiation or account information, but the data cannot be shared vice versa. And that's why it is very important in terms of how you're safeguarding my information. And then preserving company image and trust, because based on these compliance framework as well as mechanics you are taking to safeguard and protect my sensitive information, how's your transparency reputation? Are you being transparent on your data policies, your data protection mechanism? Are you publishing your reports? Are you actually making the stakeholders aware in terms of any incident? Be security incident. It doesn't mean there is a breach, anything. I was working with one of the cloud infrastructure company, and we asked the CIO of it, so what's keeping you awake in the night? And the person said, right now, what's keeping me awake is every day I'm taking down 45 to 50 fake applications from Google Play Store or iOS, because they will actually breach the trust of the consumers who put their data with us, and we don't want to take them, or we don't want to allow the third-party unauthorized players to take access of our data and also imitate as one of our partners to talk to our consumers. So it is extremely important what measurements they are taking. At the same time, as part of operational risk management, what are your practices? How often you do your audit checks? How often you upgrade your security systems? How often you look into the new technologies and your eyes on the future and innovation? So this is where ESG data security and privacy would matter a lot more. Now, this is a fishbone diagram, which is very interesting the way it is here, because fishbone diagram is a very, where you see this fish and the bones coming out. It is a very interesting way of doing incident resolution and management, or root cause analysis, or corrective action and preventive action, where something has gone wrong. Where did it go wrong? What all happened in each of these actors? What should be done? And what's the endpoint? This is the fishbone diagram in quality management systems. So this diagram clearly talks about, if you look on the left side, start from the cyber threats. Cyber threats could be data corruption, system compromise. System compromise could be from any actor, inside job, unintentional data leak, unintentional unauthorized access to the system. And then what could happen is these people can actually leverage and take advantage of your vulnerabilities, threat and vulnerabilities. And what is at the risk? Your devices, the connected devices, connected spaces, and smart grids. If you remember, a few months back, there was an outage in some part of US because there was a security issue. Somebody had taken down the grid. And imagine if that thing happens, how it impacts the social life, the people, or the hospital where they need power and energy to conduct a surgery, a life-saving surgery, and there is grid down or hacked. And that's why it is very important. Hello, everyone. So it is very important that collaborative efforts are taken from government side in terms of the legal frameworks design, as well as the public-private partnerships. So of course, the industry and the corporate governance has to be part of it into enforcing and following those regulations and protocols for safeguarding that infrastructure. Now, another simple thing I would talk. People say Apple devices are very safe. I'm not questioning their security. I would say, yes, they are. But does that make Android devices really vulnerable? Now, why Android devices get not hacked? Let's say why Android systems or devices are targeted more. So one Apple device is equal to 7 or 8. That's the ratio of Apple and Android. And those actors who want to cause disruption, they would go for where they can cause a mass attack or massive impact of their cyber breach. Apple, if only 1 million people or 100 million people are using, very limited scope. But Android, if half of the world's population or more than half of the world's population is using, that's a massive impact. And that makes noise. And that's where they go, because this is where high risk and high return. Return on the Apple side is very limited. Reason, 2. 1, Apple controls its own system from iOS to the physical hardware. Android is controlled by only software side, but device manufacturers are different. That's why. So we need to look into cybersecurity is a collective responsibility from user side, corporate side, as well as the threats are always there. Now, data governance. Now, as I said, data governance is a legal framework which is designed by the government or the regulatory bodies in terms of policies, security policy, data privacy policy, or standard operating procedures, what is happening. And standard operating procedure is a very important thing because that defines what needs to be done in terms of managing or controlling certain crucial or sensitive information. And these policies and procedures are very, very, very important aspect of ESG data management. And in my line of business, we call them control documents. And control documents, reason why they are clearly defined guidelines, because they are the ones which are always in hand of the people who are acting on it. And it is extremely important that those documents, those procedures, those policies have been regularly updated with the new regulations coming in, and always the most recent update is in front of the personnel who has to perform. Imagine, everybody has flown once in their life. And when you are in an aircraft and aircraft is flying, it's completely disconnected from all the internet or something. And how do these guys operate within that aircraft? Because they always need to have a very clearly updated policy and procedures. If there is any component in the cockpit change, they need to have the procedure exactly for that, not for something else. And that's very important. A very recent example was that an EV car maker was forced to recall certain batch of cars, replacing the batteries because the batteries were not matching the ESG standards. And the first mechanic who touched the car was thrown with the shock 2 meters in the garage because he did not have access to the most updated procedure. And that's why this governance framework is extremely important to regularly update in terms of that information and circulate it. And then we also have security protocols in terms of how you are accessing that data, how you are protecting that data in terms of encryption scheme, in terms of transport of the data, not only at rest when you are having that data in your storage or in your server, but also when data is in the motion, when you are transporting the data online, electronically, or digitally from one mode to another. And then different data privacy standards, which are actually enforcing confidentiality. But there, one thing, there are data privacy standards are constructed of 3 standards. CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And you always need to meet and match those standards full time. Any lapse means the first two positions of policies and security protocols have been breached. And then retention. And this is extremely important because you need to keep that data, what you need, and also you need to have a retention policy, how long that data is going to be there, and then how are you going to dispose of or recycle that data or destroy that data, not to have any carbon footprint, as well as also completely eliminating any digital footprint of it based on those standards you have devised within the organization. And based on that, we also have data risk assessment and ESG. And data risk assessment is extremely important because it starts with your qualitative and quantitative metrics on the types of ESG data, what data you're gathering, how you're gathering, the source, and then data sources, how reliable and authenticated those sources are, what quality of data is coming to you, and what's the purpose, intended purpose of that data, why you have collected it, and what are you going to use for? Is it data analysis? Is it to drive new marketing campaign, drive new product insights, to offer new services? How are you doing it? And then you need to also be aware of when you are storing that data, when you have that data, your data governance model also involves mitigating the potential threats and the risk of the threats. And risk management and risk mitigation is extremely important when you are dealing with the data. Then data security protocols. These three things we all are, I think, aware of. Physical controls, you cannot access the data center, so you cannot access any of the office, which you're not allowed to. This is having physical, strong security on the data centers. And this is where also involving all three will involve something called business continuity management and business continuity plan, which we call it as disaster recovery. If something has gone wrong, how fast you can recover my data, which is RTP, return to the point, how fast you can retrieve my data based on those controls. Flood, terrorist attack, intrusion in the premises or office of certain data center or where data is being held. If you're not having enough physical security, then do you have enough administrative control that somebody has gone in, but they only can access what they are authorized to access. They cannot, not like physical control is breached and then it's the key to kingdom. No, there is administrative control is still involved there. So this is the second level of second layer of security. And then technical controls in terms of firewalls, encryption, antiviruses, threat protection, and risk mechanism, as well as something called SIEM tools. This is where these tools are heavily involved, which are called security incident and event monitoring. These are the softwares which are running continuously 24/7. And if there is any spike in terms of any attempt, in terms of any breach, in terms of any unauthorized access, they immediately alert everyone. And then you can take the corrective measures. So this is a combination of security control here. And then we have data privacy control, where on top is you are reducing the noise of the data. You are collecting what you need and why you need. So data minimization is a technique where you only collect what is needed for your business and intended purposes. And then you have your data retention policies, how you're going to input, store, safeguard, analyze, and protect that data. And then data subject rights are on the consumer side, where consumer or the user whose data has been collected is legally authorized to access that data, rectify that data, as well as if he or she needs or wishes, can completely remove that data. So that consent of the data is absolutely paramount to have data privacy controls in place. Then there is something I think is very important to know when we say innovation. Of course, there are privacy enhancing technology where new methods are coming in product or the services developments where privacy by design is input during the product development phase, and you have a lot of control in terms of your data quality as well as data security, and then different encryption scheme. I have talked a lot on this already, so no point on going into too deep on how the encryption is going to impact, but definitely the encryption scheme should also be adhering to your sustainability goals, because you do not want to create performance, high performance needs for encryption. There is one very important thing that, have you guys noticed when you install antivirus on your desktops or on your laptops, you say it has become slow? It has not become slow, actually, because you have a software which is actually monitoring every traffic coming in your system and every traffic which is going out of your system or the device. And that is working as a watchdog. And high risk actually lowers the performance. And why it lowers the performance? Because, sorry, high security. High security lowers the performance because there is a trade-off. High security would need a lot more computation power. If your laptop is made of Intel Core i7 and quad-core processor, while your antivirus program or your malware protection program is needing 60% of those resources, then you have only 40% available resources to do your other jobs. Because high security would need more computation power. Now, because your laptop cannot scale on its own, but cloud infrastructure, new technologies where you are using modular architecture or modular infrastructure can scale to meet that demand. But if they scale, that means more energy consumption is required. And that's where this homomorphic encryption embedded within the product design helps reducing and keeping in check those computational needs of the systems. Now, AI-powered security tools are very important because they are there to, let's say, global warming potential or for product carbon footprint. And these powered security tools are able to do that, not fudge any data from any side. And they not only protect your data, but also give you enough insights in a scheduled way that you can take your corrective action and well-informed decision to adjust your systems properly. And then basic data protection measures, which is the low implementation, low impact, is a basic standard that it needs to be there. A very important data protection program measure is, if many of you are using the mobile banking, you input your key or password and you still receive an OTP or one-time password. As I mentioned, something you know and something you have. Something you know is your password or your PIN, and something you have is your mobile number, which is registered to that service provider. And then you receive the OTP and do it. But this is not something rocket science. This is the basic data protection measure which has to be in place. And based on this, because all this landscape in terms of regulations, in terms of data privacy and security side, cyber threats, everything is changing. And continuous training is extremely important. And why it is important, there is one thing which I should be mentioning here, is not only you need to educate your employees in terms of security or data handling procedure, that ethical handling is required, or incident response, but at the same time, as part of many industries say, as part of your systems check and audit and compliance, you need to document it, that that particular person has been trained. That is called read and understood. And it's not only in training here. Many times when you install a new software or you receive a operating system update, and before you do that, even though it has a heavy text, it still asks you accept and continue, because read and understood. If you don't accept it, that means you have not done anything and you cannot continue. And they do not want to hold any liability of something going wrong. That's why. So a proper training for employees and the workforce, as well as the stakeholders and consumers, is extremely important to not only handle the data, safeguard the data, but also when something goes wrong, immediately respond back to the corrective action and an appropriate action. Now, sustainability in data management is, I think I have already covered a lot more in terms of move the legacy systems and go to the modern platforms, cloud infrastructure, use AI in terms of ethical consideration, as well as resource efficiency, how you can optimize your data management, your data sources, as well as your data storage policies. And then data hoarding and pruning is very important, because the more garbage data or historical data or archival data is there, which is of no use, you need a lot more energy and computing power to retrieve the right information on the right time. So having a data and digital hygiene is extremely important, getting rid of a lot of noise and having streamlined, appropriate data all the time, as well as have a properly defined digital lifecycle management for your data, for your documents, for your information, and keep revisiting those guidelines within the organization, adhering to the regulatory enforcement coming from industry or regulatory bodies or external sources. Now, what's the benefit of ESG data strategy? Of course, the first thing is enhanced decision-making. Why? Enhanced decision-making is actually required so that you could not only jump on the opportunities and the areas of improvement and increase the revenue generation for your business, but also you could take the right decision at the right time and do things first time right. If you have access to right data strategy, if your data is doing right, your data collection and data transformation, ingestion is correct, you get better insights. And in my past life, I used to work with data a lot, data migration. Take out the data from the legacy system, migrate it, import it into the new system. And many times it happened, the data was not right. And then we had to say, garbage in, garbage out. So you always, as I said, you always need to maintain your digital and data hygiene in terms of your organization, what data you're collecting, how you're maintaining it, how you are updating it, and how you're storing and analyzing it. When you have this right, of course, you are adhering and complying to regulatory side. That also helps in terms of having any revenue loss, having any legal troubles, penalties, fines, as I just said about the story of Keurig. Those guys overstated their sustainability goals and environment-friendly goals of their own product. And if you have used coffee pods, once the coffee is brewed out, it's a thin metal piece with some coffee in it. It needs to be composted, but that metal will not recycle on its own. It has to meet certain standards. So you need to be compliant with your product and services offering. At the same time, when you have these things right, you have increased efficiency, increased productivity of your workforce, as well as your resource optimization is there. And then you gain competitive advantage in terms of stakeholders involvement, engagement with your shareholders, investors, and your end customers and consumers. Now, what is the future trend? And that's where it is very important, because I just noted down something very interesting, which I did not know even before, like global consolidation and evolution of regulatory frameworks, because a stringent regulatory framework is coming very soon. And ISSB, International Sustainability Standards Board, is going to transform and bringing a very standardized framework across all the industries, across all the territories and geographies, something like what ISO standards do. Like the golden standard of data security and data privacy is ISO 27001, which tells how you actually store, manage, and do things with your systems, accessing and processing around data. Then convergence of auditing standards. This is where also there is another interesting thing, which is coming as part of IAASSB, which is International Auditors and Assurance Standards Board, which are devising a standard, universally accepted ESG auditing framework. So not that you have been given certain ESG guidelines, you are adhering to SDG goals, and you are doing everything in your industry, but the auditing framework has to remain universal, which would be very good. And then growth of advanced ESG tools like AI and how AI will transform in terms of automation, collecting the right data, preparing the right insights, helping the corporations and organizations meeting their ESG initiatives and projects. Then monetization opportunities in terms of how you are going to monetize that product and services, how you're going to optimize it, how you're going to rain check, what do they say, and you adjust your product offering and not actually crossing the lines, and you still remain carbon neutral or zero carbon. This is where another mechanism which has come in force, I believe many of you might already know, is carbon border adjustment mechanism, where, as I said, that carbon credits would be rising market more than $50 billion in next 5 years. And then based on that, of course, involving investor and consumer expectations, because then you gain the trust, you deliver the services, you maintain your social and governance responsibility towards your environmental aspect, and the involvement of your investor and product consumer is going to be really great. And then anti-greenwashing penalties. This is a very important thing. And this is exactly what happened to Keurig when they actually overstated in their SEC filing of Security and Economic Commission about overstating and that they have achieved all that goals, but their product was undergoing scrutiny for the last 4 or 5 years. And then they were hit hard with $1.5 million penalty. Now, there is something very interesting. Everything I talked is either government side, data privacy, data security, and data protection, cybersecurity. But do you actually realize it's us and us as a human behavior accessing those systems, social media, internet banking, free Wi-Fi, how we do it? And this is a video which I saw in 2016. Back then, imagine, it's nearly 9 years from now. Back then, this made a lot more sense. And now the technology has moved so far ahead, and cyber threats have moved so far ahead. And what may happen to your personal data? I wanted to show this video because you all are a very young population. You all are a very digital, tech-savvy population. And as much as sitting in Europe, I read about things on digital arrest and cyber attacks and how it is happening. And then people say, oh, I lost 8 crores. And I'm like, how could you have 8 crore? But then people have money. But how did you tell that have money? This is us. And as I said, digital hygiene is extremely important. We should watch this video for 2 or 3 minutes. It's a very short video, but really fun video. And I believe you will learn a lot more in terms of data privacy and security in personal context. I was saying 2 words from beginning, PII, which is personal identifiable information, and SPI, sensitive personal information. And it shows everything. And these 2 level of information is not only on the corporate governance side, but also on personal user behavior. I will play this video.
Good evening, sir. Sorry to interrupt in between, but the audio is not audible of the video which is being shared.
Oh, wow. I don't know how to do it. Is there any way? Would you be able to play it for me?
Sir, I think the host would be
I-
able to play. Actually, I am the one. Sorry, sir. I'll
Okay.
ask the host.
Manvendra?
Yes, Vikas.
You have this presentation with you. If I email you, would you be able to play it for me? This video, if everybody can
yeah.
hear.
Yeah. Let me try.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing because this is my just last, second to last slide.
That's PDF probably.
Shall I share it with you one more time?
Please.
Okay. I will share the link and then maybe you could just play directly on your screen. It's a YouTube video.
Share me the link.
Yeah, and Michelle has already done it.
I've shared the link in the chat already.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a second. Wait a second. Actually, from my side, it may not be able to. Wait a second.
Is there any way you could make me host or something? I don't know. If
Why not?
that could-
Why not? Yeah, you are host now.
Okay, thank you. Let me know. I'll share my screen once again, and let me know if you can. Okay. You are seeing the folder, or you are seeing the presentation now?
So we are able to see the folder now.
Okay.
So you may directly go to the YouTube and play it.
Yeah, I could do that. Maybe. Yeah, it would be better. I just don't want to play with the ads.
That's okay.
Okay, let me share my
It's a part and
screen.
parcel.
Yeah, okay. It's an interesting video, and okay, I have it. Now, let me know if you can see my presentation, and I'll play it, but if you can hear the audio, okay? You seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, let me know if you see, if you hear the audio.
No.
So the audio is not means audible.
Audio is
We
not,
can't.
okay. Okay, well, I don't know how to do it. There are just
Maybe a country restriction, data privacy.
maybe. So, okay. There are, the audio is not there. The good part is there is subtitles, and audio is in French, Dutch, or Flemish, which is a conversation. And you have the link to watch that, but I will play it. Hopefully you could just go through and read it, because there is a very striking message in the end of this video. If that's okay, can I play?
Please play the video and share the link so that anybody else can watch anytime.
Yeah. It's already shared, and you can watch it.
Sir, actually, I saw that video with audio, sir, and it was showing that the data has been taken and it's being represented online. So you have to be very careful while using this data.
Exactly.
That was the information given at the final. And it is not a magic. He is not just like a mind reader. He is just taking the data online and is giving the facts on the person. So that was the information given, and we have to be very careful while using this data.
Absolutely. And that's why, as he is doing his show there, and as we share, and that's the thing, we tend to share a lot of data. And what he has shown here is a little workshop of people who are analyzing that data. And this video was in 2016 when AI was still not conceptualized the way it is right now. And then facial recognition was the first thing. And now these things are running in an automated way in bigger, massive data centers with the help of AI. And that's how you see what may happen. And we are a lot more connected than what we were in 2016. Right now, it's talking individually to people on their things. But right now, imagine how much data is interconnected in all aspects of our life. So yeah, that was the video about data privacy and how we do it, what we do it. But at the same time, data security and protection is not only the responsibility of the corporate where we are giving it, what data we are giving it, how we are giving it, and is it really necessary to give it? And then the mode and the way our own behavior, how we access that data. Do we really care for certificates, HTTPS, TLS, how we establish that connection to that data, how we access it? Is somebody else going through that data for us? Is there any encryption scheme behind it? It is extremely important how we access our social behavior on these digital platforms and how much of the data do we truly give in. Now, based on that, of course, we are in last 15 minutes, and that's where I wanted to end my talk and the call to action for everyone's role in data and privacy, not only from the government side, not only from the corporate side or organizations or enterprises, but also from as a stakeholder on the public and individual, that what we need to look into, how we need to invest into future and environmental friendly technologies and infrastructure. We need to look into if privacy is respected, if privacy is embedded within that product and its design, what's their audit sequence, how transparent they are in their data practices, their data management side, in their disposal of the data, as well as are they really on path towards meeting their ESG goals? Are they going to meet what they say they would and when? So that's an important aspect of looking into the data privacy and data security as an individual from our side. Now I keep the door and the floor open for, I'll share this presentation and for any questions any of you may have.
Thank you, sir, for imparting invaluable insights. Your intellectually stimulating session has laid the groundwork for all of us to gain knowledge and growth. Now we can take questions from the participants. I request the participants to ask questions one by one so that sir is able to answer clearly to your questions. Participants, please. I request the participants to ask their questions. Participants, please go ahead.
I know in
Sir,
our
good evening, sir.
territories. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, good evening, sir. This is Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram from southern part of India, Tamil Nadu. Actually, sir, I asked a question in the chat box that is actually regarding the data privacy and security. What are the steps that are taken for breaching this data from the customer side? Because we give the data when you are purchasing some articles or something like that. But actually, what happens? That data has been captured by some other persons, and we get the informations and client or even for calls and all. Regarding our car loan or anything like that, or even for your personal loan or something like that, because the data has been captured from some other source. So, what are the steps that the Indian government is taking to protect this data, sir?
That's an interesting thing because for Indian government has already signed an act called Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which came in effect on 11th August 2023. There is a gazette already out there. I read about that gadget last week only. It's a 21-page document which has strict guidelines for each of the organization, be they whichever industry they come from financial services side, like collecting for the loan information, credit card, and then selling it off somewhere else, as well as data mining companies who might be just taking your data from online portals. They all have been put under stringent protocols of how they need to handle that data. And the customer consent is required. Based on that, you are actually placed in a very sweet spot where you see certain data which you gave to them has been unauthorized, shared, or access provided to someone else. You could actually sue them to the court. Indian government allows you to do that. Same thing for us. At the same time, as a user behavior, the first thing you need to actually ask, do they have your written or digital consent to use your data, store your data, share your data, and access your data offline when you are not actually accessing it. These all are the practices you need to actually ask them how to do that. But at the same time, I understand in given an Indian context, it is very difficult and we are not actually much educated, and by behavior, we are not practicing it every day. But there is an act already passed by Indian government.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for a valuable explanation, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello, good evening,
At the
sir.
same time, in GD, yeah, please.
This is Ranjan Singh here. I am
Yeah.
working in a corporate sector. So nowadays we are using heavily AI tools. So how
Yeah.
much it can be very threat to our personal life also?
AI can have threat on your.
Personal life also.
Oh, of course. I can't say what all threat they can have, but there is a lot of threat. Not sure if you, and that's where I say there is a lot more educational information available. And one of the AI massive scam, which I recently learned about, that AI generation, the most important is the voice generator. That is the one most important, that fake calls coming to your phone number and asking for some money or transaction or in any form. One of the scam happened in US was where a mother, a retired professor, was called that her daughter has been abducted and kidnapped, and the daughter was calling to her mother, pay the ransom, set me free. And that was not the daughter, that was the robocall, as they're calling it. And it was AI generated voice modulation software, which generated exactly the same voice of the daughter in panic state calling the mother. And what did mother do? Instantly clicking on the link, transfer the money. That thing was in the news for a very long time. There are a lot more impersonation of digital identity for AI. That is also another thing that can happen. And that's why AI models are continuously learning. AI models are continuously being refurbished. And these all are from natural language processing to large language model. And they all are conducting a lot of research. New data sets are coming in, and a lot more new threats will also be coming in, how that all data set can be used and monetized for improper monetary gains. But one of the scam, as I said, is part of this robocalls where voice modulation can just mimic your voice and ask for the money from your friend. That's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Because there is a question in the chat box.
sir, I do
Okay.
have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. So please go ahead.
No, there was question somebody was asking.
Yes, sir. Actually, I was seeing that question only.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody says,
So,
whenever I search for
sir,
something online, instantly get calls and ads to mailbox or mobile phone. How can I? First thing, use data privacy tools. The thing is, let me share my screen again, or maybe if I can just show it, and you will be able to see what happens behind. And first thing is, don't accept the cookies. And those cookies are not the ones which we eat at our friend's home or our family homes. But every time you access a website, any website would ask, accept cookies. You need to actually click on it before you say accept, read the terms. What are they doing? Because those cookies are nothing but the cache memory sitting on your laptop or your mobile phones and providing access to web trackers, what you have been hearing, what you have been doing. And somewhere I would just say there are many software, let's say open source software available, which are actually blocking those trackers. One of that I use is DuckDuckGo. Let me share my screen one more time. So you're seeing my screen now. Is it visible? Oh,
Yeah, visible now.
okay. Now, this is an Indian website, right? And I don't allow them to access it. But if you click on the shield and productions, and you see my tracking information is on, and you see what tracking content, and then you see these all are the mule trackers which have been actually on for this particular website. And then if you go and you see my production settings in the last 1 week, how many trackers I have stopped. And then there are privacy tools in extension. If I click on this here, and you see DuckDuckGo Privacy Essentials. And this actually stops your one of that. I'm not promoting you should use this, but this actually stops your ad trackers. That's one thing. Always, as I said, always keep your digital hygiene. So whenever you access any new site, it actually asks for cookies. Before you accept the cookies, reject it or use only the essential information which is required. Because if you are blindly accepting accept the cookies are the ones which are easily let's say corrupted. And then cookie stuffing is one of the cross-site request forgery. This is one of the easiest cyber attack, that you have any tracker or Trojan installed on your laptop in your browser history, and everything you do, they get to know. Whatever you are accessing, they get to know, and the same advertisements you start getting. So always look at if that particular site has any certificate, and then you see what is happening. Is it a SSL certificate, HTTPS, TSL certificate, and then which all production settings are on or not on, and then you could change it. So you could actually change it to strong, and then you will safeguard yourself. So a lot of ability is in our hands, and we don't need to go out find expensive solutions for that. But are we willing to live with that restriction? So you see here, and if you have all this, a lot of tracking would just go away. You need to practice the safe browsing habit. Don't accept the cookies. That's the first thing. If anybody is having silly ads or ads which you just don't want to see. The thing is, you could also, whenever you are accessing your information, always see where this information is coming from, you could just go and open that information in incognito mode in private. This is where they cannot actually access what you are doing because it's a very private access. This is another thing. When you are in a public space or public infrastructure and accessing internet or digital interaction with any portal or website or services, try to use VPN, which is virtual private network, and safeguard your information. Many times it happens that you go out in a cafe and you find a Starbucks free Wi-Fi and you say, hey, there is a free Wi-Fi, access it. How do you know that Wi-Fi is actually authenticated and right one, not some tech-savvy high school kid is sitting on his laptop with a little device called Pineapple and mimicking Starbucks free Wi-Fi while the Wi-Fi is not coming from anywhere but his mobile hotspot. And he is reading everything on his laptop, what you're doing on your mobile, because you connected with that insecure Wi-Fi data. So this is all about secure behavior, the way you interact with digital platforms across the mode of equipment, device, and channel you do. From my experience, there was a thing, as you asked, how do I know and I secure myself? This is exactly the same experiment I did 7 or 8 years back. I was in one of my Dutch bank. They were my client. And I went there selling my cybersecurity product. And they said, oh, we are all secure. We are all fine. While I went in, I had actually created exactly the same Wi-Fi as ABC Bank guest Wi-Fi. And I was sitting on the second floor of that manager talking to them, and they said, all fine. And I said, you are a bank. Yes. You train your employees. Yes. They know how to interact with safe network and everything. Yes. And then I said, explain to me why 7 devices are connected to my free Wi-Fi and looks like all of them are your employees, because on this floor, no public is allowed. This is your employees or your vendors who are sitting here. Somebody was using Facebook. Somebody was trying to pay online delivery food, and somebody was just accessing Google information, and I could see everything on plain text on my screen. Well, it was not a pleasant experience for the person, but it happens. It's the most common form of cyber attack, which is called man-in-the-middle attack. People don't know if somebody is sitting in between your network server and your device and reading and accessing all the information what you're doing. So always authenticate which network you're connecting to, then who all are as part of trackers accessing your information, what are the data consent protocols you are following, and then you actually hold it responsible. Like even if I access some sites here and they ask for, as part of GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, that regulation allows only 12 months of holding my data. And after 12 months, they have to send me an email for a consent that do I allow them to hold my data further or they should dispose it off. And I always say dispose it off. So it's all about our behavior on internet, how we access it. Well, I believe
So there is a question from a participant, Ms. Priya.
Okay.
Her question is why the color of bone is different and what does its different color represent?
In my fishbone diagram?
Yes, sir.
It's let's say it was just designed. No thing was let's say not chosen by that way. It was just AI generated diagram from my text. So that was yeah.
Sir, I do have a question from my side.
Yeah.
Sir, nowadays, as we are management research scholars, so in the field of science, what they do is that they experiment something. They find out what results or negative results, whatever they get, and then they write it in paper. But in the management field, what happens that we see what is happening in our surrounding. We take the previous data, use the data sources, and basically we are dependent on our literature, past literature. So, sir, nowadays people are writing their articles using AI tools. So how should what should we do to enhance the performance so that we can actually manage this AI written research papers than our own thought research papers. It's actually
Yes, sir.
impacting the performance of the scholars who are trying to write it by themselves.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And at the same time, this is plagiarism, as they call it. And a litigation happened in US last year where one of the research scholar on the legal side actually wrote his whole thesis on legality of data based on ChatGPT. And that was a plagiarized. Supreme Court of the United States held him responsible, rejected his thesis and everything. But it's a difficult subject how to monitor because there are different AI models coming up. And based on, at the same time, people will always do that. At this moment, I have no real idea how there are certain tools which are checking this proofreading and plagiarism happening. But at the same time, as long as you are referring the same context of historical papers or journals already out there and you are changing a bit of language here and there, this is a continuous challenge on this. I don't think there is anything at this moment we can clearly pick it up that it has been out of box. We can pick it up that it has been copied from ChatGPT. But at the same time, it also is on the integrity and authenticity of the person who is representing and writing those papers and submitting it. And it just goes on the responsibility and accountability of that particular individual from where they are doing it. Because AI model, as much as they are evolving and as much of new data sets and large language models are coming and the way machines are getting trained, this sort of practice will continue to happen.
Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions. And thank you so much, sir, for imparting the valuable insights.
Thank you,
No
Vikas.
problem. Thanks. It was pleasure to be
For
here. I
accepting
hope
our-
time was good.
Thanks for accepting the invitation and share your thoughts once again. And in coming future also, we will be having such kind of workshops, especially on the data privacy and data governance. I'd love to hear more from you.
Very happy to participate and contribute our experience, because usually Michelle and I do these things together on researching topics, finding right topics, information, because many times it's like what we say, 1 + 1 is not usually not 2, we become 11. And we try to think not just one thing, but 10 different things because of the collective experience and collaboration we bring in together. So would be very happy, because a lot of information which I brought in here, I was working with Michelle last week on that. A lot of guidance always comes from there. So I have to give my credit back to him also.
Thank you, Vikas.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Vikas.
No question. Then wish you guys all the luck and see you tomorrow on next session on data center.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dear participants, we will resume the session in 5 minutes. Kindly join via the same link. Thank you.